thereafter, what was the spark for this fantastic project of yours?
The spark was, as it was mentioned, that I started my first 10 years of my career, I was mostly doing academic research. And shortly after moving to UBC from York University, I was asked to get involved as an expert in court cases. And I was involved in a very difficult one, the Delgamuukw case in British Columbia. And I was doing research in this paper, and I started realizing that some of the research that I was doing, some of the evidence being presented from anthropology and sociology and archaeology, was based on studies that I had read as a graduate student, and I hadn't realized at the time that research, in fact, had been generated in the 1950s by research being done for the U.S. Indian Claims Commission. So I got interested in why, as a graduate student, I'd taken a number of historiography courses about archaeology, anthropology, historical geography. I hadn't heard of the Indian Claims Commission. And I had no one in our historiography courses had ever talked about the interaction between applied research, which in this case litigation research, and academic research. So I started looking into that, partly interested in my own background, and before I knew it, I discovered that while the Indian Claims Commission had influenced the approach to claims work in New Zealand, had influenced work in Australia, and so it was like dropping a pebble in the water. The project started small, out of sort of interest in my own academic background, and it got much, much larger. I was also surprised to find out early on that in the early claims research, although the claims were about Native rights, the Native voice was silent. So,
thanks to this, my next question would be with regards to the contribution that, with a distance, you may believe that your work has done with regards to the scholarly community in Canada. But in addition, I would say, this is Canada, but your work is also a major comparative research. You have a sort of panoramic view on this issue. So contribution to scholarship in Canada and possibly on the other territories where your research had relevance.
Well, I think it points out the importance of the social sciences and humanities to contemporary issues in Canada for certain, for example, in the area of Aboriginal rights. In my case, my background was interdisciplinary, archaeology, anthropology, and historical geography. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is the interplay of all these disciplines and the law. And a number of years ago, when I first came to UBC, I was talking to a lawyer who told me that the one area of law that's strongly influenced by history and historical evidence is Native law, because Native law is new law. It's being built as we go along. So that more than almost any other area of law, the social sciences and humanities have had a major contribution. So I'm an historian, trained as an historical geographer, but archaeologists, anthropologists, sociologists, political scientists are all making a contribution, and collectively it's an interdisciplinary effort. But I hope the book brings to light is just how complex the interaction is between new research for claims advances the law, which in turn also advances the disciplines that are involved, because one of the things that claims have done is generated a lot of new research, because there was a lot of money in claims, and research is funding dependent. So that's one area, starting in the 1950s with the U.S. Indian Claims Commission. Before there were big granting agencies in the state, it really gave a boost to American Indian history. So I've talked about all these aspects of the process. And I think it does say generally the importance of humanities and social sciences to advancing human rights for certain, not just in Canada, but elsewhere. But Canada, you can see Canada's role when you look at these other former British colonies and their development and their approaches to claims and rights issues.
Social scientists or humanists, normally we don't go to court every day,
No.
most of us. And,
You're lucky you don't.
but you did go and you made some surprise, there were things surprised you. Can you elaborate a little bit? What surprised you, particularly on the issue of native claims?
Well, on the issue of native claims, as I said, one of the things that, let me back up a bit. When I was first asked to do it, I remember naively asking the lawyer, what am I supposed to do as an historical expert? And he said to me, well, you're there to educate the court. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, but it's a very different classroom. It's an adversarial system, which is something I was not used to, which is not what the classroom is supposed to be. Well, maybe sometimes is, but it's not supposed to be. And a lot of the questions are not, one of the things that bothered me most, I guess, is I realized a lot of the questions aren't being asked because they really want an answer or they're really interested in that piece of history. It's positioning, it's to try and, the question is asked to make a point rather than a curiosity-driven kind of a question. So I found that the courtroom is a very different environment. Not to say that the lawyers and the judges are not interested in history, because they are. And in the long run, I think the longer overview, I think, comes out in my book is that the disciplines have been educating the court, not just me. I mean, the social sciences, because the courts generally, as the lawyer put to me the first time I asked him that question, he said, well, a lot of trial judges think they know history, but they don't. And we've just had the whole business of the residential school inquiries. And that's one aspect of the history that was not as well known to Canada as it should be. Well, the other aspect is the effects of colonialism on economic rights. A lot of litigation is about economic rights. And the economic history of Canada vis-a-vis Native people still is not very well known. It's an under-researched area in the humanities and social sciences.
You talked about the contributions of colleagues to your research at the beginning of your career. So this tempts me to ask you, how are we doing these days with regards to transmission on the issues that do concern you? How are Canadian universities, how is our community doing with the new generation?
That's a tough one.
That's my role.
Well, it's the transmission of knowledge. I think I'm not certain that in the social sciences and humanities enough attention is given to the role that academics can play in applied areas. My own department hasn't followed up that much on what I did in that respect. I think Aboriginal people, for example, need the expertise. They ask for the expertise. That's how I got involved through a lawyer, but it was a request from the Native communities. A number of times during the course of my career, I was asked by other colleagues, well, when are you going to get back to doing real academic research? Which I thought was kind of a strange question. Because for me, there's not that much of a difference between curiosity-driven research and applied research. It's maybe the difference is who's asking the question. But some of the applied questions might be not ones you came up with, but they're very interesting questions. And there's always a curiosity side that you can explore with them. So I don't know if I'm not sure I answered your question, but.
And we'll have time during the afternoon because we will come back with Archer after conversations with the two other winners today.